package. That's some bizarre shit. What the crap? Where you get that? You got that from Africa.
No.
Or just some weird movie.
Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. It's like getting dimmer and
Like
dimmer.
so I have a picture on my Facebook of a man standing. It's like a man standing on a cloud.
Oh,
Have you
that's
seen
weird.
it?
No. What is that?
Might be the super PC mode back here. It's holding its position straight up and down.
It's one straight up and down and staying that way.
Oh yeah. You guys see that?
It's like a. This looks like a person with his arm sticking out. I'm videoing it. What the?
I think that might be a gas.
ต่อละดูอยู่
Yes.
Oh!
What the? No! What? Oh shit! Oh shit! No, baby! No!
Are we dangerous here?
Yeah, we're dangerous. Oh my god!
Oh dear! Are you filming?
Yes, I'm filming.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced that Moscow is boosting its nuclear arsenal. It comes after Kremlin officials denounced a US plan to station tanks and heavy weapons in NATO states along Russia's border. They say it's the most aggressive American act since the Cold War. More than 40 new intercontinental ballistic missiles, able to overcome even the most technically advanced anti-missile defense systems, will be added to the makeup of the nuclear arsenal this year, he says. Tension is high between Russia and the US over the Ukraine crisis as well as other issues.
This article by Roland Oliphant in Moscow, writing for The Telegraph, the British newspaper The Telegraph. I'll just read the first two paragraphs, which is also the first two sentences, and I think it speaks for itself. Russia and NATO are actively preparing for war with one another amid the greatest buildup of military tension in Europe since the end of the Cold War, a new report says. Rival exercises by the Russian armed forces and NATO have led to several near-miss incidents that could result in confrontation between the two sides. And leaders need to consider a new arms control treaty to avert the possibility of heightened tensions spilling into war. Well, now NATO has made agreements with Estonia, with Latvia, with Lithuania, with Poland. They're moving weapons into all those places, and now they're getting involved in Ukraine. This is a very, very, very concerning issue.
The world is orange in The Hague. And trust me, I'm not using any filters. The sky is totally orange. It's raining and the sky is totally orange. And trust me, I'm not using any filters. Yeah, it's really dark now because I'm walking through my house. I'm walking to the back of the house. And again, I'm really not using any filters. It's some effect of the sun, maybe. This is weird. There's a thunderstorm going on. It's raining. and the sky is orange. I'm 49 years old and never in my entire life have I ever seen anything like this. I have never ever seen it before.
To South Africa, where a British tourist has captured some footage of an elephant who didn't want its photo taken. The nervous titters, that is seriously frightening. An elephant charging your vehicle. The uploader did say no one was hurt, but the truck took a bit of a beating.
Be it Mount Amina, Mount Diablo, you name it. Everyone was obscured. Oh my gosh, we're having an earthquake. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This is a good one. All right.
Passengers who were waiting for a bus in northeast China's city of Harbin got a nasty surprise on Sunday when the ground beneath them caved in. 4 of them fell into a 2-meter deep hole. They were then pulled out of the hole and sent to the hospital to be treated for injuries.
A planned power increase from the first Japanese nuclear reactor restarted since the Fukushima meltdown has been delayed. Japan's Kyushu Electric Power stopped the raise in output from its plant in Sendai because of a cooling system issue. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe wants reactors to be switched back on to cut fuel bills, but opinion polls show most people opposed the move. Meanwhile, the power company has been monitoring activity at Japan's most active volcano, which is near the nuclear plant. Japan's meteorological agency said there was a risk of a larger than unusual eruption of Sakurajima. Activists have called for Sendai to be shut immediately because they say there is no viable evacuation plan for the plant.
This footage captures the spectacular eruption of Ecuador's highest active volcano. The massive Cotopaxi volcano spewed ash and smoke up to 2 kilometres over its crater on Friday, with the Geophysical Institute reporting that it entered an active state of eruption after a 5:30 a.m. tremor. The volcano is located around 31 miles south of Quito. Its snow-topped symmetrical cone, which rises to nearly 6,000 metres, is visible from the capital on a clear day. Authorities haven't ordered mandatory evacuations, but have declared a state of emergency and are monitoring the situation closely. The last recorded eruption of this volcano was 75 years ago in 1940.
Check this out, a blanket of spider webs covering plants and trees on the outskirts of Lezama, Buenos Aires province in Argentina has surprised the local residents there. Now, the arthropod invasion was the result of the rising river levels and flooding following days of heavy rainfall in the region. Now, scientists say the rainfall prompted the spiders to seek out higher ground to build their webs.
Hundreds of dead birds in downtown Tulsa. Plenty of people surprised to come across that today. New at 9, Fox 23's Rick Marinon was there for the effort to figure out what happened.
For those working at 9th in Detroit and downtown, it was like something out of an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
I thought it was in that movie, The Birds.
Those who work in the area were stunned to find an estimated 200 to 400 birds littering the ground.
Didn't want to move at all, even when I parked my car right by them. They just looked exhausted, pretty worn out, didn't move around a whole lot. Looks like they're having a bad day.
Many people who work in this area tell me that when they were commuting in, they noticed that all of the birds were on the ground, but many of them were still alive and their wings were moving. It was around lunchtime when they all died.
The best guess I can give you is hundreds, and that would be more than 200 or 300. How many more than that, I'd just be guessing.
Carlos Gomez is one of the Tulsa area state game wardens. He believes a rare weather phenomenon happened during the thunderstorms early Wednesday morning that essentially washed the birds out of the trees and threw them to the ground.
Guys, it's Nick. It is Monday, August 24, 2015. It's 12:46 in the afternoon here in Arizona. Okay, so here's the thing, guys. I actually wrote this originally to go over with you regarding what happened on Thursday and Friday. It's now Monday, and we've had over 1,000-point drop in the Dow this morning. So let's just go over what happened. So we had Thursday and Friday. The stock market fell 888 points in 2 days, guys. That's the first time since November of 2008 that we've had 2 days, and there were back-to-back losses that were over 300 points. But remember, it's the 8th month of the year. 888 points could just be a coincidence, but I thought that was kind of unusual. And that's exactly what's happening. We're having a massive sell-off in China. It's throwing everybody for a loop. We're going to keep going onwards. So I wrote the article on July 14th about China collapsing their stock market. They suspended trading there. They also suspended trading here on the New York Stock Exchange.
Let's look at what I wrote about in my book about debt. And in this case here, I'm talking about China and the US and how China owns the debt of the US. As of the last few decades, the US has been able to continue to consume at its unbelievable level because of the debt is being purchased mostly by China.
And so in both prior Jubilee years, there was a major development in Israel. The next Jubilee year starts on September 14th of this year. As well, in September, the UN plans to launch a new plan for managing the entire globe called the Sustainable Development Summit from September 25th to 27th. Some of the biggest names on the planet, including Pope Francis, will be speaking at this summit. The focus of this plan is to expand the scope of global governance. Global governance can also be defined as one world government or a new world order. The Pope, interestingly enough, will be busy in the US all of September, as on September 15th, the Pope will also be speaking at the UN, and then on September 24th, he'll also be speaking at the US Congress. The next thing I notice is that Jade Helm, a massive, unprecedented rollout of the US military inside of the US, runs from July 15th until September 15th. This is particularly interesting in that there always seems to be a drill being run by the government during when an actual crisis occurs. Jade Helm has already begun in preparations, and the amount of military equipment being amassed in the US is truly mind-boggling. There's a lot of speculation that this amount of military buildup in the American South is in preparation for some sort of civil unrest. But it gets stranger and stranger. Recently, the New York-based Federal Reserve announced it's moving its operations outside of New York to Chicago because of concerns about a natural disaster. One might ask, what natural disaster are they expecting in New York that they aren't expecting in Chicago? Then, after the Fed's recent Federal Open Market Committee meeting, it took the highly unusual act of removing all calendar references from its post-meeting statement. Normally, in the post-meeting statement, they include calendar events for upcoming important dates like the next meeting. This time they didn't, and they just alluded that a date range for their long-awaited 0.25% rate hike, which alone can almost teeter the entire financial and monetary system loaded with debt. And NORAD announced that it is moving back into the Cheyenne Mountains because it is EMP hardened, leaving one to ask why NORAD is moving into the mountains to protect against a major attack at this time. If you listen to NATO, they appear to be preparing for an EMP attack. If you pay attention to the US military, they are apparently preparing for a massive amount of unrest inside the US. And if you pay attention to the UN, September seems to be a very busy month with leaders from around the world, including the Pope, attending numerous major events. In fact, we've already seen the first rumblings of a coming collapse happening in both Greece and China. The Shanghai stock market has already begun to collapse, falling more than 30% in the last 2 months, and the Chinese Nasdaq fell 40% in the last 3 weeks. And in Greece, the banks and stock market have been closed for weeks, and they're laying the foundation for a civil chaos that I expect to fully foment over the summer and explode in September. This will set off a chain reaction that will shake the entire US dollar-based financial system. This is enough evidence for me not to be anywhere near the US from now until at least October.
World Week for Peace in Palestine-Israel will be September 20th through the 26th. Ecumenical World Council of Churches has called for an end to the, quote, illegal occupation of Palestine, unquote, and promotes a week of advocacy and peaceful action. Interestingly, this week intersects major holidays for Judaism, including the Days of Awe and the Day of Atonement, and for Islam, including the Hajj pilgrimage and the Day of Arafat. There won't be peace for the earth, but a sword. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. From Obama to Pope Francis to Hillary Clinton, from the UN to the World Council of Churches, they all seem to be calling for peace and security. But they are going to get a sword, and it will come merely hours after they proclaim peace and safety on September 21st. Just hours it will take for the labor pains to accelerate until the birth.
So Elul 29 is 10 days before. That's the peak of the Shemitah. Yeah. 10 days later comes September 23rd.
And there's a blood moon in there somewhere.
And then the next thing is Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, during which you have the last blood moon, the blood moon period. It all comes together. And on Elul 29 you have a solar eclipse.
Remember, therefore,
what you have received and heard. Hold it fast and repent. But if you do not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know at what time I will come to you.
While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly, as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. But you, brothers and sisters, are not in darkness, so that this day should surprise you like a thief. You are all children of the light, and children of the day. We do not belong to the night or to the darkness. So then, let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be awake and sober.
So, we've all seen this map here, which is the what they call the Navy map of New North America. Okay, and it's very similar to the map by Gordon Scallion, where right here the new coastlines, it goes all the way up through the New Madrid, all the way up through here. The whole East Coast is flooded out. Florida's gone. California over here, the West Coast is gone. It's flooded all the way up in. So, and if you look at Gordon Scallion's map, it's basically the same exact thing. And another one that a lot of people have seen is this one here, what they call the America in the New Millennium. So I'll try to zoom in a little bit on this for you. And as you can see, it's same difference as the Navy map, and pretty similar to Gordon Scallion's, except a whole lot more of Florida is gone. You can see in there.
When you see them, you know something is wrong.
But when you see the men and women of Fort Bragg's 20th Engineer Brigade, you also know you are in very good hands. Nicole Carr got great access today to their vital training as they prepare for any kind of disaster.
These are Army engineers, the soldiers who answer the call when something goes down here in the United States.
We're specially trained and equipped for chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear hazards.
And in a moment's notice, these 20th Engineer Brigade soldiers are undergoing inspection, preparing convoys to Florida. Early Friday morning, the notification went out. Get ready to join hundreds of other troops for a week-long mock nuclear disaster scenario outside of Jacksonville. Morning, the notification went out. Get ready to join hundreds of other troops for a week-long mock nuclear disaster scenario outside of Jacksonville, something state and local authorities would not be able to handle on their own.
That would be the only reason why we would be calling.
Well, conspiracy theories are running wild tonight about the Army's plan for a multi-state training exercise this summer called Jade Helm 15. While the military says it's just training soldiers for the realities of war, critics say the Army is preparing for modern-day martial law.
You said recently that you thought that there might not actually be elections in 2016 because of widespread anarchy.
Get ready to join hundreds of other troops for a week-long mock nuclear disaster scenario outside of Jacksonville. Join hundreds of other troops for a week-long mock nuclear disaster scenario, and hundreds of other troops, and hundreds of other troops, and hundreds of other troops.
Now the protons are ready to collide in the detectors. A steering magnet finally brings them to a collision course. The total energy of two protons colliding in the LHC is 14 tera-electron volts and reproduces similar states to moments after the Big Bang. Particle tracks from these collisions will be analysed by computers connected to the detectors, and it's hoped these tracks will give a new insight into the very birth of our universe, how our universe has evolved, what governs its behaviour today, and where it's going in the future.
It did, in fact, unleash something in the world
The effects that CERN has on the brain are measurable. They're measurable effects. That's why it's underground so far.
Are you aware that you have awakened a lot of people to the dangers of the CERN LHC, and how does this feel?
It's nothing to feel comfortable about.
Here's one of the things about this. This antimatter is also called dark matter. And dark matter has energy attached to it. And the energy affects people. It affects them. And remember, when you produce antimatter, you got to contain it. Because if you don't contain it, you got to contain it. That's the biggest problem, containing it. Because if you don't contain it, it just goes wild. But they do know this. From what they've experienced so far, it has an effect on people. Dark matter has an effect on people. It causes some people to go screaming mad. It controls people. It is an enormously powerful thing. It's pulling something out of hell that you don't want any part to do with and turning it loose.
You have to remember our world is made up of matter. The antimatter is what we can't see, what we can't touch, what we can't feel, though we interact with it every day. A lot of people like to think of antimatter as the other dimension, which is the opposite of this dimension. It's an inconceivable place that is hostile inherently. It's not under control, it's very hostile. So there's a physical effect to the spiritual world in antimatter. And often, demonic entities and all these other paranormal things are attracted to antimatter. For every gram of antimatter that's produced, and then it's bought into this world when they produce it, it attracts things from another dimension coming here. Because everything is balanced, the subject of Lucifer in the spiritual sense, because God gives everything balance. Everything has balance. There is dark, there's light, there's good, there's bad. Everything has balance. CERN has yielded so many results and gave a true definition of paranormal activity. It's beyond me that a lot of people cannot get this through the truth of the word. They can't. Antimatter is being pulled out of nowhere, out of this other dimension, which is nowhere but everywhere. In consequence to that, they found out antimatter has a specific type of energy signature that they can, in fact, detect. This is how it's part of the process of pulling it out. Well, as it comes to find out, some of the not so good consequences of this process has to do with the human psyche.
There's just something weird about CERN. CERN's Large Hadron Collider is the world's largest particle accelerator. In fact, it's the largest machine on Earth. Now, they tell us that they're seeking answers to some of the deepest mysteries of time and space. But some people believe that CERN is actually the key to the abyss, to the bottomless pit. And what they're going to do with CERN is allow the beast to rise from the abyss. They tell us that the idea is to recreate the circumstances right after the so-called Big Bang, or the beginning of the universe. They also claim to have already discovered the God particle. But what's really going on with CERN? Operatic dance performance filmed inside CERN. Symmetry tells the story of a CERN researcher who rediscovers love through the song and dance of the infinite cosmos. But what's really going on with CERN? So isn't it interesting that right around the time that CERN is about to activate the Large Hadron Collider once again, we find this, what seems to be strange ritual taking place actually inside of CERN. Let's take another look at this. Symmetry is an operatic sci-fi dance performance based on the work being performed at CERN. It follows Lucas, played by the film's choreographer Lucas Timilak, a CERN physicist hard at work using the LHC to search for the smallest particle in existence, when a ghostly woman played by soprano Claron McFadden appears. I want to show you a little bit of this footage. You can decide for yourself. Now this right here is the very beginning of the video, and I thought it was interesting because right here in the very beginning we find Saturn's ring. Check this out. In the search for the smallest particle. Boom. Right. And now check this out. Watch the way these people are dancing. It's also interesting to note that in between the different segments of this short video, they like to keep showing us Saturn's rings. Check this part out. I thought it was interesting as well. Now they're about to jump over to a new scene, and then watch the guy's cheek, and then there's that guy in the black right behind him. Now watch. Once again, just keep in mind that there is a very, very common belief that CERN, what they're doing, that these people are actually in league with the fallen angels, or with the satanic system itself, the devil himself, the beast system, or the Illuminati, you could even say. All this stuff is tied in together. This is really heavy stuff, and I find it amazing the things they're kind of showing us just in this short video, or this ritual that they performed at CERN. So just considering the possibility that that's actually what they're doing, that they are trying to open up the pit, that we are really in those times, as prophetic times, that it's time to unleash the beast, right? Then man, this imagery is interesting, isn't it? So look at this. Just watch. It's open, right? Here it comes. Anyway, it's interesting. It goes right here. Got the lady in white inside of the magic circle. You got the guy dressed in black walking outside of it. So once again, we have that symbol of the dark and the light. This time the light is the lady in white, and she's inside of a magic circle with the man in black walking around the edges. There was the ring again, right? Look, here it comes. Gates open. Boom. Here they come, right? Fallen angels, the devil himself. They're on the way.
The Vatican's secret plan for welcoming in an alien god with a small g.
These powers and principalities that Paul writes about in Ephesians 6, these demonic forces, powers and principalities, these demonic forces have seeded this idea into the world, so we are primed and ready for a deception.
Okay, but what makes you think the Vatican has planned to announce this?
Well, you know, they're having astrobiology conferences. They've made it intellectually virtuous to believe in these extraterrestrials. Their writings coming out of their theologians have pretty much made the argument that if you don't believe in extraterrestrials, then that is actually the heresy.
You talk about that the Vatican is going to reevaluate their position on basic Christianity. What do you mean by that?
Well, their theologians have written that they think that these entities will be evangelizing us, so that we would have to modify our beliefs according to their revelation.
We also got access to top astronomers that work in Rome, including an astronomer by the name of Guy Cosmonago. He's one of the top astronomers for the Vatican.
What was the major thing you got from your interview with him?
Oh, well, two major things. One, he says without apology that very soon the nations of the world are going to look to the aliens for their salvation. The idea that we are soon to be visited by an alien savior from another world is going to affect Christian belief. There is a professor for the Pope's university in Rome, and he is a very highly respected intellectual. His last name is Tanzaniti, and he has written a paper now in which he is saying that very soon, not right in the beginning, we won't have to deny our Christian faith in the beginning. But there is information coming from another world, and once it is confirmed, it is going to require a rereading of the gospel as we know it. A rereading of the gospel as we know it. And that's the kind of information that we are receiving from the highest levels of Vatican intelligentsia.
Where's this headed, in your opinion, after all this research?
I think it's headed towards an imminent great deception.
pierdas la oportunidad de aceptar a alguien distinto. No pierdas la oportunidad de que te cambie la vida.
The Vatican's secret plan for welcoming in an alien god. You talk about that the Vatican is going to reevaluate their position on basic Christianity. What do you mean by that?
Well, their theologians have written that they think that these entities will be evangelizing us. That they think that these entities will be evangelizing us.
You have explained to us that there was human sacrifice that went on inside of the Satanic Church and inside of Satanic ritual. Can you tell us how this was done?
How did they murder people? All the children's posters that you see that are missing, they're pretty much dead. They have underground caverns in the mountains, and they keep the children and the kids and the women and men there. And then at a certain time in mid-September, October, they take them out, and they're so... Remember when I told you I could make people get away from me? Like, they'd make the people so numb with curses and stuff, and they'd also drug them up, and they'd take a sacrificial knife and they'd start from the chest and move all the way down to your abdomen. And then that's how they sacrificed, and they'd collect the blood and they'd drink it. when the mid-September through mid-November, they sacrifice babies and nothing but babies because they need the pure blood of the untainted children. And I didn't understand what it was like. I just can't believe I'm seeing this every year of my life. I've experienced that, and that was the hardest part for me, is like hearing those babies literally scream and cry. And then seeing their blood flow. It was horrible.
Why is it that no one knows this?
Because there's Satanists in the police force and also in the government, the army. They're everywhere. They're even on the council of, the representatives of the United States also. And they're silenced because this is not being exposed, because they don't want it to be exposed. Because they're really good at lying and hiding things.
Rebecca, what happens to the people that want to come out of Satanism?
They get killed. They get followed. They get taken. They get sacrificed in front of the congregation of the Satanic Church.
Why?
Because they know too much information about the Satanists and who their names and places of where they keep the people underground, and they just know too much information. It's like being in a gang or in a mafia. You don't get out alive without consequences.
Is this difficult for you to talk about?
It's really difficult because, I feel really scared because I don't know how to tell everybody that's out there that I came out, because I'm not sure if anybody's going to believe this, because it's so much like a fantasy. Warfare is real. We're born into a war, and you'd be very foolish not to understand that, because demons are real and people are influenced by bad spirits.
Well, I come from a multi-generational satanic family, and for the first 7 years of my life I was tortured and sexually abused in a trauma-based mind control system called Monarch.
Project Monarch, in which trauma is used to split the victim's personality, seems to be a hybrid of the brutal mind control techniques developed and still practiced by the old religions and intergenerational abuse families, and their mass distribution techniques developed and adapted by the Nazi-infiltrated American military.
It has a very long history. It's been used for 4,500 years or so as part of human society's methodology for controlling the lower classes of human, as they're perceived by them. These people are doctors, lawyers, politicians. These people are people that you would think to be respectable members of society. These people are often very powerful. The interplay between secret societies, fraternities, groups of interested parties such as bankers, the Freemasons, and pedophiles. This interface is very complicated, very complex. It infiltrates the judiciary, the police, all of the agencies that are supposed to protect us from it.
These criminals that are in control of our country operate on the philosophy that secret knowledge equals power. Many government secrets and personal reputations were staked on the belief that I could not be deprogrammed to remember those things that I was supposed to forget. They were wrong. For as intelligent as these perpetrators are, they're limited in their thinking by their own immorality. They don't have wisdom. They don't think deep. And they never considered the strength of the human spirit. They never considered what would happen when a good man like Mark Phillips gained knowledge of their secrets and used them to restore a mind rather than control one.
And she showed me the drawings that the children were doing in her office, and they were of blood sacrifice, of people cutting their arms and dripping blood in chalices, of chalices with devil heads, and on and on and on. It includes group sex. It includes children being killed. And I remember I just felt like my guts were just punched out of my body. And so my quest to save my children has taken me here. And as a consequence, and I can tell you here today, there are other mothers who are here today to ask me for help who have children that were victims of satanic ritual abuse. And it's really hard for me because I'm only one person, and my life has been annihilated, although I have to say it's being rebuilt for the better. And yet the governor and no one has been acting to protect my children. So it makes me wonder just how high this goes. But I'll tell you a story about a little boy that affected my life, and I guess it's besides John and Ben, who I always think about and who I want to stop this from ever happening to another child again. I heard a story about a little 8-year-old boy. His mom had taken him to protect him, and they were found. And I had been underground for 3 years, by the way. The mother and this little boy were found. The little boy was taken to a basement. He was crucified alive. First he was skinned. When they torture the children, it causes a physical reaction of the endomorphins in your body to just increase because of the terror and the pain. So when the Satanists drink the blood, they actually get like a chemical, a high, like a drug high from the blood of a tortured victim. And this little boy was found in the basement dead, with no blood, skinned alive and crucified. This cannot happen to any more children. I can't do it alone. My children are there. It's really hard.
Auf dem Weg nach Sion-Trier am Genfer See. Ganz in der Nähe steht ein Gebäude, von Deborah das Grüne Haus genannt. Hier wurden die Kinder laut ihrer Aussagen nicht nur missbraucht. Die heute 15-Jährige spricht in unseren Interviews von satanischen Zeremonien.
Also, es gab einen Tisch und da waren Kerzen und
was für Kerzen?
Kerzen eben.
Und wo waren die? Waren sie überall?
Also, da gab es diesen Tisch und rundherum waren die Kerzen aufgebaut.
Waren Leute da?
Meine Vergewaltiger.
Du hast gesagt, Sie haben eines der 2 Kinder, die außerdem noch da waren, auf den Tisch gelegt? Haben Sie alle etwas gemacht oder war es nur einer?
Es war nur einer.
War es immer der gleiche? Kannst du sagen, was passiert ist, ohne Details zu nennen?
Also, sie haben das Kind zersägt.
Sie haben ein Kind zersägt?
Sie haben Teile von seinem Körper abgetrennt.
Womit?
Mit einem elektrischen Messer.
Haben Sie das Kind lebend zersägt? Und dann haben Sie es getötet?
Nein, die haben es leiden lassen.
Aber das Kind ist trotzdem gestorben.
Ja?
Sie haben einen Finger abgeschnitten?
Einen Fuß. Solche Dinge.
Sie haben einen Fuß abgeschnitten und es sterben lassen.
Und sie haben es währenddessen missbraucht.
Also er hat das Kind missbraucht und die anderen schauten zu.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for what is right, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted in the cause of right, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people abuse you and persecute you and speak all kinds of calumny against you for my sake. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward will be great in heaven, as it was for the prophets persecuted before you. In your prayers, remember your Father knows what your needs are before you ask Him. This is how you should pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.